Supreme Court to hear gerrymandering cases against Democrats, Republicans. Washington UN state legislatures, the majority party typically comes up with a map designed to keep itself in power. But can that become? The U.S. Supreme Court takes up those questions Tuesday, returning to political reformer. The court hears two challenges to redrawn boundaries for congressional districts that gave an advantage to the party in power, Republicans in North Carolina and Democrats in Maryland. In both cases, after the 2010 census, North Carolina's legislature drew a new district map, but a federal court threw it out, finding that it put racial minorities at a disadvantage. In 2016, the committee designing the revision freely admitted that it was intended to maintain the partisan breakdown of the state's congressional delegation, 10 Republicans and 3 Democrats. One state in Maryland, Republican voters challenged the redrawing of Maryland's 6th congressional district in 2011, which allowed Democrats to take over a seat in the U.S. House that Republican Roscoe Bartlett held for 2 decades. He had been Democrat Martin O'Malley, Maryland's governor at the time, made no secret of the motive behind the new map. The intent was to, confronted with similar challenges in the past, the Supreme Court concluded that, because redistricting is essentially a partisan political act, it would be impossible for the courts to know when gerrymandering became unconstitutional. In 2000, during its last term, the court again dodged the partisan gerrymandering question, citing procedural shortcomings in cases from Wisconsin and Maryland. This time, the one problem is coming up with a legal test for determining when there's too much partisanship at work. The challengers in that view is supported by 40 current and former members of the U.S. House of Representatives, evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats. Artificially, but Republican legislators in North Carolina say this is not an issue for judges. The Supreme Court will issue its decision by late June.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.